Welcome to the Healthy Christian Leader. I'm Dwight Habermehl. Come join me in the living room for some honest conversations. I'll be talking to guests about their journey with Christ through the joys, the challenges, and the messiness of leadership. There's always something to learn from someone's story, so let's get started. Well, hello, friends, and welcome to the Healthy Christian Leader. I'm Dwight Habermehl, and I have my guest here today, John Campbell. And I am really excited to have you here, John, because you are talking about such a relevant topic in AI and ministry. And we had a conversation there a while ago. And if you haven't heard that conversation that centered around AI and its use in ministry, you need to go back as a prerequisite almost to this conversation and listen to that. It was so very, very good. But John, today we're going to be jumping into ethical and practical challenges of AI in ministry, which is really going to be a conversation. I'm looking forward to it. Why don't we give people that don't know you a little bit of an understanding of your background. Now, you look after the whole IT needs and at the university there with Acadia School of Divinity.
Yeah. So first of all, it's great to be back here. I love talking about this. I love talking to ministry leaders about the impact of AI. And so I jumped at the opportunity to come and to be here with you today. So I have two roles at Acadia Divinity College, so down in Wolfville, Nova Scotia. So one is the Director of Development, so I do fundraising. With that comes a lot of time just being with churches and ministry leaders as they support the college and we support them. And then the other part is the Director of Technology for Education. So I oversee a wide range of the technical pieces for the Divinity College, within the larger university, and that'd be everything from fixing the photocopier to working with faculty to use technology well as we're training people for ministry, to experimental uses of technology both in the classroom and in churches.
And you have a technology background. Your education is in IT. So tell us about that.
I did an undergrad in computer science at the University of New Brunswick and worked in the IT field and specialized in databasing, and then experienced a call to ministry. And so I went to Acadia, studied for Next Generation Ministries, and then I pastored for about 13 years in various spots. The last one was in sunny St. John's, Newfoundland. We loved every minute of it there. But then I was called back to serve in this role at Acadia. And so we've been there just going on our 12th year, living in the Annapolis Valley, and just loving working in a place that is all about equipping Christians to serve the church. And that's our heartbeat. We are an academic institution. We're on a public university campus, but we are about Jesus. We are about his kingdom and his church. And so it's a perfect fit, the way that God weaves our lives, my life through IT and church ministry, to bring me to the time and the place that he had ordained.
So, you're the perfect person to have the conversation with.
Perfect might be strong, but I'm a person.
Let's start off with the first question is, how can pastors retain authenticity when integrating AI into sermon content for communication? I think that's one of the biggest things everybody's got red flags about.
It is. I mean, ministry is about relationships. It is so fundamentally built on trust. And the misuse of a technology like AI could erode that trust and cause real damage to a ministry, I think, if you don't go about it well. The first step is really about being transparent about the usage. So when you are using AI to do whatever it is, whether it's helping you craft a sermon or other communications, is to be clear about its use. We have a little footer that we use on some of the work we do at the college and some of the research, and we'll credit and we'll say, ChatGPT was used in such and such a way in the creation of this. And so we just put it there kind of in the footer as an acknowledgement. It might mean talking to your leadership team about the ways that you're using it and using them as a sounding board and to make sure that they're aware of how you're using it. And then there's the choosing where to use it. There are certain places where people will accept you using AI more than in other places. So if you use it to write your sermon, a lot of people, understandably, are going to have a hard time with that. As opposed to if you use AI to summarize the bulletin to put it into a weekly e-newsletter that you're emailing out to people, people are fine with that, right? And so for you to maintain that level of authenticity, to maintain that trust, you need to show discernment and wisdom when and how you're using it.
Yeah, no, and I can see it so clearly, people thinking, you're supposed to be my pastor.
Yeah.
I didn't want to, if I was going to have AI pastor me, I could have done that at home and not come this morning.
Exactly. There's two common ways I see people react to this, right? Is I'm going to use it for everything, and I'm not going to be thinking critically about my use of this or the impacts of my use of this, or the whole no, we're not going to use this. I mean, you can look back at the introduction of the printing press to see how the church responded. And there were some who just said, no, the printing press is evil, and they banned it, and people went around burning printing presses. And then there were people like the Reformers, Martin Luther being one, but many others, who saw it as a way of actually being able to communicate with people, and it sped up the Protestant Reformation, for better or worse, but it was utilized in that way. And so, we need to be discerning about the ways in which we are using it.
What do you think are some of the spiritual risks that come with outsourcing too much to AI?
Yeah, I would say the biggest one is the limiting of the lordship of Christ. And this is not a thing that's necessarily unique to AI, right? We can limit the lordship of Christ. And by that I mean we can have pockets of areas of our life where Jesus isn't Lord, where it's not him we're looking to direct our steps or our path. And there's many things that can lead us into that, but AI could be one. So, I could, for example, say, well, this is my hobby, right? So maybe you have a particular hobby that you do, and you make decisions in your life, financial or how you're spending your time, based on the pursuit of that. And they're not bad, but if it comes at a cost of listening and responding to Jesus, listening to the guidance of the Spirit, then that becomes a problem. And so with AI, it could be, I'm going to use AI to help me think through mapping out a sermon series or a series of series. And I could just take that and put it out, and I could do it. And instead of listening to what does Jesus want me to do? What is the Spirit leading me to do? And so this is one of, I think, the key things with AI is that we can take what it gives us as authoritative in an area, whether it's a theological or just the way that we live our lives or the leadership decisions we need to make. And if we simply just accept it without discerning, we're in trouble. And we need to be doing this with everything. Like, we could have good mentors, and I could ask you, and you could give me what could seem like good advice, but I still need to take that to the Lord and to discern it. And so, and I wouldn't even put AI on the same level as a trusted mentor necessarily, as to its reliability. So that's the big thing, I think, when it comes to those, the spiritual impacts is in that area.
Now, you've kind of answered that this next question a little bit, but maybe you could go a bit deeper. How do we discern what's appropriate use versus over-reliance, let's say?
Yeah, so I think discernment begins with wisdom, and wisdom, I think, with understanding. So the first thing we need to do with AI is we need to have a little bit of an understanding of how it works and how to use the tool. So for example, I can ask the AI a theological question, and it'll give me an answer. But where is it getting the answer from? What is it basing that answer on? I can use that tool better. And asking a theological question is not a bad idea to do. But I can train the AI on the particular theological tradition or belief system that I adhere to. Right. And so I could, for example, if I wanted to use it, I could give it my statement of faith. I could give it my denomination's statement of faith. And it will align its answers more closely to that. And so then it becomes more trustworthy. And then I can use it maybe a little bit more. So there are ways around that. So understanding, what this technology is, what it's doing, understanding how to use it well, to push it or shape it or train it in a way that is more reliable. And the other part, I think, is that, is to have accountability for yourself, to build that in. So if you have a mentor, and you should have a mentor, people that you talk to about this, make this part of your conversation with them. It's like, here's what I'm doing with it. Here's how I'm using it. Because it can be really easy and really tempting to move from it just being a tool to assist in your work to a tool to replace your work. We've talked about this before about sermons, that plagiarism in sermons. You could buy books of sermons. You can go to the internet and find websites of sermons that other people wrote. That is a poor way. That is a lazy way. That is a way that is shirking your responsibility and the calling of God in your life for doing that hard work of doing that. And so building those accountability lines in.
Yeah, and I really like what you said about directing AI to certain sources to build, because I know for myself, like as an example, contemplative prayer is part of my spiritual discipline. And I've actually asked AI to develop contemplative prayer for me based on Streams in the Desert, which is, probably one of the most profound and well-known devotional books that we know, or Oswald Chambers, My Utmost for His Highest. And keying it into key tools that that are reliable. I like that.
And finding tools and resources that are trustworthy, right? And this is where the understanding comes on. So for example, I've talked a little bit in the previous podcast about the Logos Bible software and how it has AI built into it. But it's a really trustworthy source because the answers it's giving you are based on the resources that are in your library. Right. And so these are the books that I bought, the ones that I use, and so it's using it. As opposed to a tool which I recently saw online, which I won't name, which says, this is a whole seminar, you don't have to pay for this, and you can use it and come in and use it. But you get under the hood and you start looking at the source code of it, and you realize all it's doing is connecting to ChatGPT, and it's pretending to have commentaries and resources, but they don't. And so it's just completely AI generated, the stuff, and it's kind of, I think it's quite deceitful. It's passing it off as a trustworthy resource. But so you need to find ways of utilizing AI that are trustworthy, because if you don't do that, then how can you discern if you're being over-reliant or under-reliant on it? Garbage in, garbage out, with these kinds of tools.
So like you've said earlier, you can check what it's sourced if you're just putting a broad question into it, or you can actually ask your question based on directed sources. Give me some feedback from this book or this book or this book.
And I think this is an important role for churches. So there was a denomination down in the States who actually paid a developer to create this website called Ask Kathy. And I believe it was the Episcopal Church in the U.S. And they gave the tool all of their materials, all of their doctrine, all of the books that they had access to, theological issues, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of these resources. And there's this tool on the web, and you can go and you can ask it questions about that denomination. And it's really trustworthy, right? Because it knows, but it's because it's been built for purpose and trained on good, reliable information. And so in some ways, us as ministry leaders, we need to consider how we're using it ourselves, but we need to be considering what tools are we making available to the people, who we are ministering to, because people are going to use AI tools. We want to make sure that they're using good ones at the very least.
How can congregants be educated about healthy technology use in their faith life?
Yeah, well,
because they're going to catch on.
Oh, they already have. So, I mean, the horse is out of the barn on this, right? So, I think there's a role for the church in just the general education of its congregation to be talking about technology use. Most churches are probably doing this anyway. I mean, I was a youth pastor. I talked to the youth about the use of, the internet, when back in my day when I was a youth pastor, the internet was a big thing. And then social media came on, right? And so we talked to them. We did training sessions with parents to help them understand that technology. And so AI is no different, right? So I think it's just, this is another and a new area, a new technology that's out there that the church needs to pay attention to and to help. So there are resources that are becoming available. A lot of this stuff is only a couple of years old, so we're seeing a bit of a lag, but some of it is training it. I know at Acadia, I've taught continuing education courses for pastors already on the use of AI. So becoming informed ourselves as leaders, looking for those people or resources to come in and talk. I have a group of churches who are flying me up to Toronto in a couple of weeks to come and talk to all their youth pastors about this, and so I'm giving them a 3-day seminar on it. So it's be intentional, right? That's number one. Don't shy away from it. Don't just label it as evil and bury your head in the sand.
Right.
You probably don't know everything about it, and that's okay. Learn about it, find somebody else who knows about it, but it's having that conversation and engaging it through all the various ministries that we already have.
What theological principles can help guide AI integration into ministry practices?
Yeah, the big thing that a lot of conversations come back to when we're in the theological realm is a concept called the Imago Dei, which means the image of God, Latin for the image of God. We are told in Scripture that we as people are made in the image of God. But the Bible doesn't clarify for us. There's lots of debate about it, but the Bible does not clarify for us what that actually means. But we know that we are the image bearers of God. Every single one of us bears the image of God. AI has the potential and the risk of dehumanizing us. And we need to be very careful about this. And so, for example, you could have a really great AI tool on an iPad sitting outside of your children's program at your church that a parent could walk up to and speak to check their child in. Scan a little tag, thing comes in, little Jimmy goes into the Sunday school program. But maybe there's been somebody who's been a volunteer doing that work for 30 years. And all of a sudden you are replacing them in the image of God that they carry and the work that they were called to do with this tool. For why? For the sake of efficiency. One of the greatest promises, and it's a deceptive promise, is that efficiency is important. And it is. There are aspects of the work that we do that we could wish that we could just be more efficient at. But sometimes we try to be efficient in the wrong things. And we undervalue the people who serve, who may do things the slow way. So I think we really have to be careful that God calls us to work, right? Right from the beginning of Genesis all the way through, there is a work for us to do. And replacing people and automating them out of that work, this God-given work, that is as much for them as it is for growing the kingdom of God, is and can be a very dangerous thing. So a theological principle of the Imago Dei and taking a human-centered approach to how we implement it, I think is a God-honoring way of doing it. God gave us a job to do, to work with creation, to be protectors of it as creation protects and cares for us. He calls us to the work of teachers and apostles and evangelists and whatever it is you're called to do. And we need to make sure that we honor that and we recognize that and don't be too quick to automate and replace people in it. Because again, going back, that's limiting Jesus's call in an area of our ministry or an area of our life. Obviously we want to be good stewards of the technology. One of the things with AI is the environmental impact. AI takes multitudes more electricity to run the models, fresh water consumption for the data centers that it takes.
To cool them.
And to cool them, exactly. And using AI where it's not needed can cause unnecessary environmental damage. And so we want to even be wise in not using AI in some places for even just for the creation care of God. And that's without even getting into like mining and all that sort of thing to create the technology and the chips and the minerals, and all of that. So we have to weigh these things with the way that God has called us to be, and the people He's called us to be, with the benefits of using the technology. And it's hard. I love technology. I want the Christmas sweater that I've seen online says, "Ooh, this calls for a spreadsheet," right? I love using technology, but I have to constantly check myself to say, is it necessary? Is it wise? Is it God honoring? Is it, honoring His creation and His calls on people's life to automate this? There's a lot of connection between our theological beliefs and our structures and the way that we utilize technology throughout various ministries.
Well, and I can see too in the way things are going that, you had in a conversation that we'd previously had, counseling is now becoming connected to AI.
Yeah.
And there's resources coming there. And there's a place where you can disconnect. We were talking about, grief counseling and some of the direction that grief counseling is going. Maybe you could share a bit like that. And there's a dangerous direction that it can go.
Yeah, so there's the rise, and you can Google this and find there's a really great article and documentary by The Guardian on this, but the rise of an industry called grief tech. And what it is creating AI agents that look and sound like a person. So let's say your spouse is terminally ill. This is the example of some people in this documentary. The spouse was terminally ill, so they created an AI to look and sound like them. Trained it on all of their journals and all the writings and photos and everything, so that when they died, their children would still be able to talk to this spouse. And it raises huge questions and ethical questions around that. And, what does it mean to be alive? What does it mean to die? What does it mean to be human? Is this hurtful or harmful for a person as they experience grief? And there may be some legitimate uses and extreme cases for this kind of technology under the supervision of a trained professional in an appropriate way. But for this just to be rampant out there, we see examples in some seniors' care homes where patients, maybe with Alzheimer's, for example, are given an AI tool on an iPad that they can talk to because there's nobody to be there to talk with them. And this is the interesting thing about AI, is that those problems existed before, but AI, because it's available and so powerful, is starting to be used as an answer and not always an appropriate one.
Yeah.
And so we need to wrestle with these things. We need to be aware of them. So if you're a pastor, you may not be recommending that somebody look into a grief tech company, but if somebody comes to you and says, "My spouse is dying, this is what I'm thinking of," you need to be able to thoughtfully and prayerfully be able to give them your opinion, on that, and to be able to give them good wisdom and guidance.
So there's tensions to manage, definitely, as
there
you
are.
Move through the application of AI.
Yeah.
What future trends in AI should church leaders prepare for now?
Yeah, so things like live language translation services, we're already seeing that out in the wild, so people can listen to what's happening on the platform in the church, the sermon translated into their own language. But that already exists. Real-time video translation is basically here within the year. I think we'll see that. So Zoom meetings or your live stream to your service, it could be, hearing it in that. But one of the bigger things, I think, and the more pressing thing for us, is that we are seeing a large trend just in culture around individualization. And we expect this in everything else we do, like my top picks on Spotify or from Netflix.
Right. Yeah.
And there are many apps that are coming out now that you'll see that are giving spiritual direction to individuals.
Oh, wow.
And you can have this, AI that offers prayers and resources to you that are coming. And so this hyper individualism that's coming, and AI is going to fuel this. And there are some advantages and disadvantages to that, and we could talk in length about it, but churches need to be paying attention. Denominations or groups of churches or large Christian organizations, I think, have an opportunity to be utilizing and creating some of these tools to help nudge it in good and healthy way. When it's profit-driven and corporate-driven, there's always risk for things, even when it's well-meaning, to maybe go a little sideways. So to provide AI tools for people to use, because people are accessing them. People use ChatGPT and they'll go ask it questions that, 10 years ago you would have only gone and asked your pastor for life, lessons and that sort of thing. And so just like we as churches had media libraries or physical book libraries for people so that they could access good resources, we need to be considering what should we be doing to allow personalized but reliable AI tools to help with spiritual growth and direction of people in their day-to-day lives, so that you can have that tool that they can have at their fingertips at all the time to offer good advice and wisdom and spiritual discernment. It's not a replacement. It's alongside of the other good practices, I think, in the toolbox of ministry for churches. So that would be a huge thing, I think, about the near future in the next 3 to 5 years when it comes to ministry and AI.
John, such a fascinating conversation. Yeah. We'll have to do this again.
Yeah, love to.
So John Campbell, and we have talked about AI and ministry. And we'll see you next time on The Healthy Christian Leader. Well, thanks for joining this conversation. I trust that you were encouraged and challenged by the stories and experiences that were shared today. Would you join us next week? You can find new episodes weekly in video form on the Aaron Ministries YouTube page and in audio form wherever you get your podcasts. Aaron Ministries is an interdenominational network of friends in ministry with a mission to foster healthy Christian leadership. Check out our website, aaronministries.com, for more information and resources and on how you can donate to our ministry and potentially start a healthy Christian leader gathering in your area. Until we meet again, may you experience the Lord's blessing, grace, and peace. I'll see you next week.